Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Dan Casper here with you as always. We're going to talk some hoops. Brandon Bergs is going to be joining me here in just a little bit here. We're going to talk some hoops with the Bucks, kind of reeling right now. We got Final Fours coming up as well. Also, we're going to talk some Brewers with him. We are a week into the Brewers season, so we'll hit that up. But we're going to begin the podcast talking some more draft. Let's talk a little Packers prospect preview, highlighting, some players that could potentially be the Packers' first-round pick. Now that we are 3 weeks away from draft weekend, 3 weeks from today is day 2, rounds 2 and 3. We've been highlighting, a player or two every day or so, and let's highlight a couple of offensive linemen. And again, these are players that if you've Googled mock drafts, like on NFL.com or CBS Sports or ESPN, these are players that have been commonly mocked to the Pack, or maybe some Packers fans have been really banging the table for this player. So we've highlighted a few already, but let's take a look at two offensive linemen. And we'll start off with Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon. And I've seen him mocked, first round, back end first round, early second round and such. But it's evident that I think Green Bay is looking for an upgrade in the center position, even though they kind of sung the praises of Josh Myers during the season last year. If you remember in preseason and training camp, they were kind of going back and forth with Zach Tom and Josh Myers. And Josh Myers ended up staying at center. Zach Tom stayed over at right tackle. Zach Tom, fantastic year. I think Myers had his better year, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was a great year. He had his moments, but he's entering his final year. And I think Green Bay is now going to be looking at, okay, do we have a better option out there? Is there a better option? And that Josh Myers pick too, when you go back a couple years ago, is a little bit more highlighted because of the guy that was drafted right after him, Creed Humphrey, who's pretty darn good center for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. So could Green Bay potentially use their first-round pick on their new center, on Jackson Powers Johnson? Maybe, possibly. He is the number one center in this draft, but he also a little bit of versatility because he also played a little bit guard back in 2021, 3 starts. Played in 11 games, had 3 starts, 1 at right guard, 1 at left guard. Heck, he even played a little defense. He was a defensive lineman, then moved over to the offensive side. 2022, 1 start at right guard. Played in 12 games. And then this past year, started 13 games at center. So you got that little inline interior offensive lineman versatility. One of the scouts out there, a quote from him, if you go and look at his draft profile from NFL.com, tough, smart, and strong. I just don't overthink it with centers. When you get those elements, you usually have a starter. So if Green Bay is looking to upgrade their center spot, and this guy's on the board, if they view that's one of their biggest areas of weakness, yeah, this potentially could be a pick. I think the interesting part when it comes to center, do they also go with the mindset of like, okay, we feel like we need an upgrade at center, but maybe they have a mindset of like, you know what, we're just going to move Zach Tom to center, and that's going to be his position, and we're not going to keep moving him around the line. We're going to make him our starting center, and then we'll use a pick to find our new right tackle or left tackle or a guy who could play tackle, both sides. Maybe that guy is a Jordan Morgan from Arizona. Jordan Morgan, I've seen second, first round, back and forth. He's a left tackle. Potentially could play a little bit of the right side over there too. And I've seen, when we started to get really into draft season, you saw a lot of people, I think was it Jeremiah? Doesn't matter. But I was reading one where it said, that just, he seems like a Packers guy. Seems like a Packers guy. So could this potentially be a situation where we were talking about the other day? Maybe they open up the season with Walker as their left tackle, Jordan Morgan as his right tackle, but then transitions into the future left tackle. Maybe. But I think, the interesting thing here is when it comes to the offensive line, I think we all know Green Bay is going to draft offensive linemen, whether it's going to be in the first round, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever. We know they're probably going to draft a couple of offensive linemen at least. They need some depth there and some potential starters over there, whether it's for this year or for the year after. But it's kind of got a domino effect for a couple of these positions. Do they view Walker as that long-term left starter or left tackle starter? If that's yes, okay, maybe you don't draft a left tackle or a tackle high in the draft. If they don't, well, then it probably moves up a little bit more. But the other part in that, too, is like, okay, how much do they really want to upgrade that center position and upgrade it this year? If they want to upgrade it this year, do they look at a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, draft him, got it set, or do they say, we're going to move Zach Tom over there, and then we're going to get a tackle here? There's different elements to this. There's different ways. To me, the only two for sure things on this offensive line this year for this upcoming season for Green Bay is Elton Jenkins is going to be starting at left guard, and Zach Tom's going to be starting somewhere. And as we know, Matt LaFleur, what does he always say when it comes to his offensive line? The 5 best will play. The 5 best will play. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I honestly feel like that offensive line group is going to be kind of a fun and interesting position group to watch when it comes to training camp and preseason. And I know a lot of it will depend on who they draft and they bring in and such, but you're going to have some battles. You're going to have some battles and maybe some jobs on the line for that starting spot. But I would love to get, kind of pick the brain of LaFleur, Stanovich, Butkus, and Goody and be like, okay, so how high are you guys on Walker? You have it set that he's going to be your starting left tackle. No? Okay. What about your center spot? You going to plan for the future, maybe draft your future center? You want an upgrade now? Or is that Zach Tom? And then, we're going to get a different right tackle over there? And I think the other part in this, too, is that I know we're highlighting first-round picks, potential first-round picks here. There's a center, though, later on in the draft that I think a lot of us wouldn't mind picking up. I know I wouldn't. He knocked it out of the park at the Combine. And we know about Green Bay and their RAS scores, how much they love that. Scored number 1 in the athleticism score test at the Combine. That's Tanner Bortolini from Wisconsin. Could that be the option that the Packers look at for their center? Maybe late day 2, early day 3? How I think with his Combine performances, he probably moved up around round and a half. But he lit it up at the Combine. And I think now he's like, okay, maybe that's an option at center. So we know Green Bay is going to get offensive linemen. They're going to target offensive linemen. They're going to draft offensive linemen. I think the biggest unknown in this thing is how early. And I think if they draft him early, that kind of maybe tells us a little bit about what they're thinking or what their mindset is on a couple players on their offensive line right now. But I think that we potentially could see some shuffling around on this thing. Or, again, maybe they just open up. It's Walker on the left. It's Zach Tom on the right tackle. They're not going to mess with that. They're going to keep him over there and just let him focus on that. Kind of like with Elton Jenkins, right? Starts off at left guard. Then he plays some center. Then they threw him in there for a little left tackle. They tried to make him the next right tackle. Just wasn't really working out, so they moved him back to left guard. Like, all right, you're going to stay there. Just focus on that. And I think they got to do that with Zach Tom. Is he going to be the right tackle for the future? Is he going to be the next Brian Balaga? Or do they really feel like his best position is center? If they feel like his best position is at center, make the move and keep him there. And then go try to find your next tackle. I want to see that. So, yes, the 5 best play, but at the same time, make sure they're playing their best position. You know what I mean? So Elton Jenkins was part of the 5 best, right? But was some of those other positions necessarily his best position? I think we know that answer. That's why he was moved to left guard, back to left guard. 5 best will play, but make sure they're the 5 best at their particular position. And let's get a cohesive group with this offensive line, too. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to talk some baseball with Brandon after these quick words. Toyson Ford is your go-to destination for quality vehicles and exceptional service. At Toyson Ford, they have a vast selection of new and used cars, trucks, and SUVs to fit your lifestyle and budget. Their dedicated team is there to make your car buying experience a breeze. They offer financing options that suit your needs and a service center that keeps your vehicle running smoothly. Come on down to Toyson Ford and test drive your dream car today. They're located at 1000 Chippewa Crossing Boulevard in Chippewa Falls. Toyson Ford, where your road to excellence begins. Well, weekend, right? Weekend. Can you hear? Are those working okay over there?
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
I mean, I could hear you either way, but I decided to put on the headphones.
Yeah, it's a little different. People don't realize it is actually different.
It is. It's actually nice to kind of hear, like,
what it sounds like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But a week now in to the baseball season. Week from today, or a week ago yesterday was opening day. Brewers 4-1. Literally just 2 innings away from being 5-0 to start the season. First week impressions, anything kind of stand out to you? I know it's just a few games. I know it's just, 5 of these games here, but kind of, and it doesn't fit the Brandon Berg quarter of the season model yet. We got a little ways to go there.
No, they also messed it up, though, when the NFL went to 17 games.
Right.
Otherwise, it worked really, really well that every 10 games was essentially one NFL game because it was 162.
Oh, yeah.
So going to 17 games, it kind of messes up math.
Yeah. But your first week impression, anything kind of jump out to you or anything maybe kind of solidify what we've been talking? Can I raise my hand and ask your opinion on one? Stolen bases?
So far, so good for you on that one.
Bryce Terrain.
For your bold prediction.
Yeah. Tied for first still. I don't know if they still are. I know they were up there with Cincinnati, but Cincinnati had an extra game on there too. So, but Pat Murphy's aggressive.
I think the aggressiveness on the base paths is probably something noteworthy because it's something that they kind of showed in spring training, but you never know if something happens in spring training, if that's going to correlate to the regular season. But early on, so far it has, so that's encouraging to see. I think you like what you see out of the defense. It's been talked about a few times already on the broadcast, but there's a reason for it. I mean, there's many days where the Brewers are rolling out a infield lineup with 3 shortstops, and you can kind of see it. I mean,
yeah,
I don't think any Brewers fans need to know or need to see anything more from Bryce Terang or Willie Adames to know that they're good defenders. But Joey Ortiz has made some good plays too.
Oh, sweet slick pickup in the glove and toss it. How many people kind of fumbled that transfer too?
You have one swoop at that.
Yeah.
And you still have to get off the good throw, and you have to beat a runner who can run. You can see why, defensively he would had the Brewers traded Willie Adames, Joey Ortiz probably would have been the everyday shortstop.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that, defensively.
And still probably future-wise, right?
Yeah. It would not surprise me if he was the opening day starter at shortstop next year if Willie Adames does not stay around. But that would, I think those things would be something noteworthy.
How about Jackson kind of actually starting off on a good note, right?
Right. Like that was one where so far he doesn't look overmatched.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing. I mean, when you consider he's, it's been said a lot, but he's literally, just turned 20 like last month. So yeah, he's looked like he belongs, which can't imagine there's many 20-year-olds that can look that way.
Right. I mean, he's made some Brandon Berg interesting lines to outfield.
Yeah, where it looks interesting, but you kind of catch it, but.
But he's gotten the job done. He's got his home run. He's on a hitting streak right now too. So I mean, you got to give the kid credit, right?
And maybe the good thing for him is he kind of got all the firsts out of the way,
mm-hmm.
so it just doesn't linger.
Right.
You got the first hit out of the way.
Takes that pressure off a little bit, right?
You just don't have to worry about if you get 2, 3, 4 games in and you still haven't gotten that first hit. It's kind of like, oh boy,
Mm-hmm.
You just get rid of all those right away, and you can just focus on playing every day.
Right. So, I mean, Freddie Peralta, if we go back a week from today, was lights out opening day. Starters, I mean, numbers-wise for runs, not bad, but they didn't really pitch a lot of innings outside of Freddie, though, right?
No, I think that's kind of probably by design with who you have early on in the year. You've got just different people there kind of building up. Deal Hall is still kind of, I think building up, and he might be one of those guys that, especially early on, it's kind of 5 busy innings, but, knowing that, that's kind of just where he is right now. I mean, that's, there's a time where Freddie Peralta was at that point, where you just kind of hope, hey, if we can get 5 good innings out of it, then we're in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Ray is going to be someone that can pitch deeper into games, and he did in his start Sunday. I think Jacob Junis and Joe Ross are still guys that are still kind of building up a little bit, so that's why you saw them with a little bit shorter. Jacob Junis was really good in his start.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Ross, you could tell it was his first major league start in a few years. Just the command wasn't there as much, I'm sure he would like, but still.
Was it 5 walks, I think he had?
Something like that, yeah, and that's too many, but still was able to kind of limit, and work out of trouble when it arised. So I think that those are guys that you just want to keep kind of going out there, and sometime here within the next few days, Wade Miley's going to make a minor league start, so he's closer than further away to coming back. And starting today, I believe it's 12 in a row, 13 in a row, something like that for the Brewers. So
next off day is the 18th.
And I think one of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reporters had asked about the possibility of going to maybe a 6-man rotation in there, and I think Pat Murphy said that's probable.
Yeah.
So maybe that's how Wade Miley works into there at some point, or if it's bullpen day or whatever. But early on, it's it's just kind of an all hands on deck, almost just like kind of getting comfortable feeling where you're going to have these guys going out there, and it's going to put a little bit more on the bullpen in the meantime until these guys get fully stretched out and comfortable going 5 or 6 innings.
Do you think that was kind of a big part of the 7th inning collapse, if you will, on the other day? I mean, Payamps struggled there a little bit there. I mean, I know they've been taxed, and I know some people are saying, well, it's the beginning of the year, how they tax it. But it's kind of just working up to getting almost – because some of these guys, would you say, is maybe not fully there and like – conditioning wise for baseball? Or
maybe, but I also think that in that series for the first 16 innings, the Twins had a lot of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of hard hit balls. I think eventually part of it too was just it was going to happen one inning. You kind of I think if you're a Brewers fan, you were probably hoping it was going to linger until like that Thursday game when they were at home playing Cleveland. But
right,
it just kind of had to feel like they had traffic, they had base runners. Like it just felt like it was kind of it was going to happen at some point, and that was kind of when it did. And Payamps just got beat on some pitches. I mean, he left some pitches up, and some good hitters hit the ball hard. I mean that'll happen sometimes. And with relievers now, you give up 3 or 4 runs in an outing, that holds on your ERA for a while.
Yeah.
So he's gonna be someone that even if he gets back to pitching strong these next few weeks, his number still might look a little rough just because of one outing. That's just kind of comes with the territory when you're a reliever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you got Mariners coming up here. We're going to see Freddie Peralta for the next second turn of here, I'm sure. I'm curious. I'm excited to see him, how he continues to build off that, but grow it. I thought it was I'll swing back to something I had talked about a little bit earlier this week, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So, obviously starting rotation before the season started, that was, I think, a position group we were all kind of a question mark surrounding it, right? We didn't, even Freddie Peralta was like, okay, is he ready to be the ace? DL Hall's the youngster. Then you got these other veterans mixed in there and such. And were we kind of like maybe, not purposely, but kind of forgetting or ignoring maybe the wild card and all that? And that was just how good of a coach Chris Hook is with that pitching staff. And maybe because remember when Derek Johnson left, everybody was freaking out. And then Chris Hook came on, and I think the first year there was like some fans like, oh, wow. But then I saw Dominic, the Brewers postgame, Catrone post out there after that opening day. Since Chris Hook has been the pitching coach, that's 11 one-hit or fewer games, most in the major leagues.
Right.
And 5 of those have been by Freddie Peralta. So, we talk about that starting rotation, but is that – because, in other sports we talk about it's like, okay, they draft like mid-offensive linemen, but they're really good at developing offensive line. And, we've always kind of said, pitchers or the Brewers are really good at, developing pitchers. Derek Johnson was a great pitching coach. Chris Hook is proven right now to be a really good pitching coach. Is he kind of the wild card in all that, where, hey, maybe he's that guy that can get this staff?
Could be, because I think in baseball, your hitting coaches and your pitching coaches don't necessarily get the buzz or the hype that maybe like an offensive or defensive coordinator does in football.
Yeah, because you're like manager than bench coach or associate manager.
It's a little bit more muddled when you kind of see like who gets like the head jobs. Normally, a lot of guys that end up getting hired as head football coaches were offensive or defensive coordinators, and sometimes you get like a special teams coordinator in there. But sometimes there's like a position coach, but not that much. But for baseball, it's not really always like pitching or hitting coaches. Like you said, sometimes it's bench coaches or whatever. Like, I'm trying to think of some pitching coaches off the top of my head that wanted to become manager. For me, the first one I thought was Bud Black, who had a long managerial career, but
because Dave Duncan was always with Tony La Russa over there, and
you just had those certain.
Mike Maddox was
a long-time former Brewer. I think he's with Texas now. Under Bruce Bochy. So it was just one of those things where it's not necessarily like an easy roadmap of, well, this person's the pitching coach, so one day they'll be a manager. Some don't want it. Some just want to focus on what they do, and they just know that I just have to worry about this.
And I think that's what we were talking about before Pat Murphy was hired, because I think we'd heard too a lot of the players asked, is Chris Hook staying around? They were asking that, and kind of wondered why was his name never maybe mentioned as a possible, but maybe that's because
Maybe they don't want to.
Yeah, he's comfortable in this game because he's been with the organization since 2008. Timber Rattlers and moving his way up that way. So he's been around for criminy how many years now? Double-digit years. So, but I just I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, how valuable is it for a guy like DL Hall, who's a youngster, really getting a full shot to be a starter, but at the same time, also valuable for guys like Jacob Junis and Joe Ross who are trying to resurrect or improve their careers to have somebody like Chris Hook.
I'm sure that's probably part of the reason why they're there. Just knowing that he's someone that can help enhance your what you have as a pitcher, both with your stuff, but also I'm sure just kind of mentally and when it comes to sequencing and how you approach pitching.
And then on the flip side, because I know Pat Murphy was complimenting him too, but with those pitchers, youngsters, and guys trying to. How important is it for Contreras, calling games? And I know Pat Murphy the other day was very complimentary towards how Contreras called the game there. Is that something maybe general fans, maybe like me, not you per se, but me or somebody else would be like, we kind of overlook that part of like how crucial the catcher is in calling a lot of those games?
I think it is. I mean, you go back to, I even go back to like the 90s with the Braves, Greg Maddux had a personal catcher. I believe it was Eddie Perez, where sometimes you have guys that are just comfortable with, they communicate better with certain other people. They're on the same page. They kind of think similarly, and that's important. And, that's part of it with William Contreras, because we know about how his framing improved when he got to Milwaukee. But, I think there's something to that as well. Just being comfortable to the guy you're throwing to, trusting them, knowing, hey, he knows me. He knows what we need to do in this spot versus, hey, I kind of know this guy, but I guess I'll give it a shot, but I don't know. Like, no, I think that's going to be pretty important.
Because who wasn't Maldonado somebody's like every few days? Was that who was the pitcher, number one pitcher in 18? Not Quintana.
No, it's not Jose Quintana. 2018, I mean...
Chacín.
Yeah, Yuli Chacín.
Didn't he?
Maldonado was gone by then.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. But I think you've seen in the past with certain people, like, heck, even go back to last year, Gary Sanchez was the personal catcher for Blake Snell.
Okay.
In San Diego. Mm-hmm. Some guys just...
By the way, Sanchez is bigger than I thought he was.
Yeah, he's a big dude. Yeah, he's
Holy
big.
cow.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
I'm like, you're a catcher?
Yeah.
That was like, wow.
But some some players just gel better with others, and that's kind of part of what it comes with when you look for catchers. Is just how do these guys get along with other pitchers? How are they getting on the same page and kind of all executing the same game plan?
Yeah. Yep. I agree. So, to answer your question, Jeremy, Ashby is in AAA.
Yes, he just started. Was it Wednesday night? I think it was Wednesday night. So, I think that's still kind of the ramp up process for him. Like, I think, and I agree with the approach, but I think they're looking at it as kind of taking their time with him. And look, if he's in the majors by June or even May, if it goes really well, like, and he's pitching well, people won't remember that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like they're taking their time with him because he missed so much time last year. And
they gave him that contract, the
right,
Freddie Peralta contract.
Yeah, and you're kind of, even going off the Jackson Trio thing where, there was a lot of, hubbub about, hey, you're giving this kid that's never played in the majors, so much money. And, obviously the jury's still out on that. But you kind of see the two different ends of the spectrum where Freddie Peralta's a bargain.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can have players that run to injuries. And that's kind of happened with Aaron Ashby so far, where, he's one of the higher paid players on the team. But, it hasn't quite stuck for him yet because of injuries. But, if it does, that's kind of the upside of what you're looking for.
I was looking up Freddie Peralta's contract earlier this morning, and after this year, he's still like $5.5 million, I think, salary this year, which is bargain for an ace.
Right.
Next 2 years are club options, and it's still bargain. $8 million.
Well, you're
$8
gonna
million.
pick it up, yeah.
And it's like, okay, and then he's still a free agent at the age of 31, which we've seen in baseball.
You can still get,
you can still get a payday at that age.
Right.
Brandon Bergs is going to be 30 when he hits free agency.
Right. So, and that was one of those things where in both those cases, if you're those players, in the case of Freddie Peralta, yeah, he's probably losing out on some money, but still, it's generational wealth.
Right.
He's, his family is set for life, and maybe the next generation too. You can certainly understand why players in that spot would do that.
And he's got other bonuses, incentives on
right.
there.
So it's not it's a flat rate.
Right. Yep. So, all right. Let's take a quick break here. We'll switch gears here a little bit. We'll finish up the second hour talking some hoops. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll end the podcast talking some hoops. Perks. I love Perks. You love Perks. We all love Perks. And one of the best perks you can find in the Chippewa Valley is Hy-Vee Perks. Hy-Vee Perks is a free and easy program for Hy-Vee shoppers. Access exclusive Perks prices, earn discounts on gas when you purchase designated products at Hy-Vee, and save more with exclusive deals, offers, and rewards. The best part, it's free to join. Not a part of Hy-Vee Perks yet? No worries. Just stop by Hy-Vee in Eau Claire to sign up. Start taking advantage of the best shopping deals in the Chippewa Valley right now with Hy-Vee and Hy-Vee Perks. How frustrated, annoyed, worried are you with what you've seen from the Bucks right now?
It would be pretty high, like a 7 or an 8. Just just seeing that, especially just back to back, just like knowing that you're outside. I think Dame didn't play the one game, but still, like you're going out there with your full lineup. Like at this point, you're trying to but just
even without Dame, you should have won those games.
Right. There's no excuse.
Right.
Like wasn't there like double-digit leads in them? Just. Yeah, not what you're looking for this time of year.
No. I saw this the other day. I think it was just yesterday. Doc Rivers. Okay, these were some quotes here. Let me bring them up here. Let's see if I can come on. Where's the exact? Essentially, what he's saying is they're not the Bucks acting very like professional, like on the road. Like he's sitting back and just kind of taking notes of everything. Here's some of the quotes. You know, it's funny. This was after the Wizards lost. You know, it's funny. I've actually been sitting back and watching everything, not just our players, but our travel crew, everything. And I've made a lot of notes. I will say that. I won't share that. But we don't bring the necessary professionalism, seriousness on the road. And that's something we can fix, and that's something we're going to have to fix. Asked a follow-up question, Rivers again mentioned the performance of the travel staff. I'm looking at it for the long run too. It's not just for the now. We've got to be better. We've got to be a better road team. If we're not, we're doing. Oh, get that pop-up out of there. It's like, come on. Oh, okay. For the love of him. Okay, so essentially he's going after the travel crew, right? Like, why is that pop-up all of a sudden up there? Here we go. I'm looking at it for the long run, too. It's not just for the now. We've got to be better road team. Stupid pop-ups again. It's one of those, like, threat-secured stuff, so I can't read the rest of it. So he's going after the travel crew, Brandon. This is giving me flashbacks of when he was with the Orlando Magic, and they were courting Tim Duncan, and the reason apparently Tim Duncan said no was because Tim Duncan's wife asked about family members traveling with the team, and Doc said no. And so Tim went back to the Spurs. But now you got Doc now having issues with travel stuff over there. Excuses? Legit? What do you think?
I don't know, because I don't know enough about that. Like,
Yeah.
It's not, we can always look at stuff that happens on the court and say, like, oh, well, I don't think that's good, or I think this or that. But that's one of those things that I have to be honest, I haven't thought about too much over the years when it comes to.
So is he talking about, I'm assuming, the guys who pack up the stuff? And
I guess. I mean, it's just one of those things, yeah. It's just like, I don't even know what to say, to be honest. Like, it's just like.
You're at a loss for words?
That takes a lot. It's just that, like, it's an interesting observation, and obviously it's something he would know more about than I would. It's just an odd thing to to really bring up at length.
We got to be a better road team. If we're not, we're doing something wrong as a coaching staff. We have to figure out what we need to do different as far as the practices and training. As a travel staff, not talking players, we may have to do something different there too, because something's missing and everybody seems happy, except for me after a game. So I just think we're doing something wrong, and we need to figure that out.
Figured out.
Somebody said travel staff. Is it about the hotel accommodations, pilots, bus drivers, the way jerseys are laid out in the visitors' locker? Who knows? Is George Costanza, the assistant to the travel secretary right now, screwing us all up?
Are they giving them really wool jerseys and they're warm?
Yeah. I mean, come on now. Cotton's where it's at, but then it shrinks. So, but it's just like.
To me, these, like, just in general, like, it's 2 weeks from the playoffs, and this is generally not what you want to hear, like, conversation-wise about your team. It's not, well, we're looking to get them back healthy, or we're talking, I mean, I want to paraphrase Allen Iverson, but we're not talking about practice, we're talking about travel staff.
Yeah.
Like, not a game.
Not a game. Travel staff. Traveling. Not a game. Traveling. Not traveling in a game.
No.
Traveling staff.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, okay, so guys are happy after losses, and that annoys him. The travel staff. Does he want them down in the dumps and angry while they're like collecting dirty laundry? I don't know.
That's why, and that's kind of the part of this too, is that we just like. And I get why Doc's not going to specifically say it's, Bob Smith with, whatever, whoever does this or that, but it's like.
Bob Smith wasn't angry when he picked up that dirty Patrick Beverly jersey because he missed a 3 at the end.
Right.
Should have just threw it in there instead
so
of.
So like it's kind of tough to talk about because it is vague. And since it is vague, though, we're just kind of like trying to figure out exactly what it is.
Yeah. I guess if I'm a part of the travel staff, I'm like, I'm getting fired.
Right.
Because Doc's going to be back next year.
Yeah.
We know that. I can't imagine him paying a 4th coach at this point in time. So Doc's going to be back. Travel staff, enjoy it while it lasts because I don't think you're going to be back next year.
Right.
So, do what you got to do, grab some souvenirs or something like that because you're probably not going to be back if Doc has his way. I don't know. But he made it to throw out there. It's not the players. But obviously it's affecting the players if it's something this big. But, yeah, I've gotten it. After all this now, it's like, oh, I got no confidence. I mean, maybe win a series, but that's about it. And I think it's going to depend on matchups. And what if they play Philly in the first round now with Joel Embiid back? I don't know. I have
You're going to
no
tell me
idea.
Philly wouldn't be hyped up for that one?
Yeah, and I just feel like, too, the one thing Doc has done since he's been on this team is he's really focused on the rotation and using the veterans. And you kind of wonder, and he mentioned it with Giannis the other day, are they starting to get gassed?
Could be.
Because we haven't seen Andre Jackson Jr. as much as Adrian Griffin was playing them.
No.
And, playoffs, what do they say? Bench gets shortened. Well,
But if you shorten it early, yeah, you're kind of going to it earlier. A guy like AJ Green that's had his moments this year too.
Mm-hmm.
Where does he fit in there?
Yep. He's kind of been playing a few minutes just if they need a 3-pointer or two.
Right.
To get out there. So, Brandon, with the women's Final Four tonight, the men's Final Four tomorrow, I'm more excited about the women's Final Four. What are you?
I think I am too, but I like this. I mean, both of them I think have plenty of storylines, but I think with the women, it's just
I think there's more star power in the women's.
There is, and that's just kind of more of the nature of the the way the game is right now, I think. And this is just one of those to some level, like there's always been star power in women's basketball. It's just that obviously,
Did Caitlin Clark elevate it so much now? We're elevating everybody else too, like going along with it.
I think there just needed something there needed to be a catalyst to kind of get that little extra spotlight on it.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was something different besides UConn. Because remember, there was a couple years ago when they were on that undefeated run. What was the narrative? Is this bad for women's college basketball that UConn just kept winning? Mm-hmm. And because that was a topic out there. Was it make it boring? Was it boring
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, UConn's going to win.
Right.
Why am I going to watch this? And now you got Iowa, where they? But Caitlin Clark,
Right.
Out there. I think that's the best. Maybe a little hand in hand. UConn came down a little bit. Other teams. I know South Carolina's still there.
South Carolina's unbeaten right now.
Right.
So
I mean, Tennessee fired their coach because they're trying to get back to the Pat Summitt level era of like dominance.
For them, just being good wasn't good enough. I mean, that program has had so much success that they're not going to settle for Sweet 16s and that's it.
Right. Exactly. So, no, I'm excited. I think South Carolina, is going to beat NC State tonight, and then whoever, if they play Iowa or UConn, I think that's going to be a fun matchup. I'm curious to see the Iowa UConn ratings tonight.
Yes.
Because if Iowa and LSU, we went through what they all beat with those, how that compares. Paige, Caitlin, and all that.
Right. It's a little bit later, so I'm and remember it's gonna be starting past 9:30 on the West Coast or the East Coast. Sorry, so that probably has a little something to do with it. But either way, like ratings bonanza, and then you look at whoever, assuming it's South Carolina and whichever one of those teams on Sunday.
Yeah.
That's a nationally televised game, ABC, like in the in the early afternoon, like.
Yep.
No, it's
going to be a fun
one.
one.
Great, yeah.
Yep. Men's wise, I think it's going to be UConn Purdue over there. I mean, not to tip our picks right now, but thanks for playing Alabama and NC State. That's just my opinion right now. But NC State's been hot. You got to give them credit. You want to talk? That whole narrative about how important it is to win your conference tournament.
Yeah.
Well, for a team like NC State, who probably had to win it to get in, and then now the momentum that they got there.
This is like the best run I think we've seen out of a team of that since Kemba Walker, UConn.
Yeah. 2011.
When they were kind of in that similar spot, they've got their, they've kind of NC State's kind of got their star there, riding right now, and they're red hot.
Yep. What 11 must-win games in a row they had to get there. So. And that is going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Special thanks goes to Resonance Branding Company, the official swag provider of the podcast and the Dan Casper Show. As always, don't forget, if you can follow and subscribe to the podcast, that way you never miss another episode, because sometimes we add multiple episodes in a day, other segments, inside the training room, outdoor tidbits, local or business of sports. So, got that over there, too. And if you got a few seconds, if you don't mind, give us a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast. Till next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.